Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to continue on with Gauss-Jordan Elimination, and this time we're going to be talking about ones with 3 variables and 3 equations. Alright, now again, it's the same process, it's just going to be a bit longer now. So just as a reminder, our goal is 1s in the diagonals, 0s above and below them, and our answer will be off to the right. Alright, so this time our order is going to be a little bit different. We still start with this, that's our first step. Then we're going to do both of the zeros underneath that one. That's going to be our second step. Once we're done with that column, we move on to the next column. And again, we start with the 1. Our fourth step is to get the 0 above and below that 1. Then finally, we move on to the last column. Again, start with the 1, and then finish up with those last zeros. Alright, so let's try this out. Just a heads up, in this video, just to try to keep it a little bit shorter, I'm not going to be doing the scratch work for the row operations. Hopefully you're okay with the row operations. I'll still give you the answers to each row operation. I'm just not going to be showing the scratch work off to the side right now. Alright. Okay, so for example 3. First things first, we write it as an augmented matrix. So for each row, we just get the coefficients of our system. There we go. Now, we would start with the 1 in the top left, but that's already done for us. So the next thing that we're going to do is get this 2 to be a 0. Alright, so if you remember, to get something to be a 0, we put the opposite number times the row where we have our 1, in this case row 1, plus the row where we want our 0, in this case row 2, is going to replace row 2. Alright. So our first row doesn't change. Our second row, go ahead and do your scratch work off to the side, and you should get this. 0, 3, -6, 9. And our last row doesn't change either. Alright, next up, we need to make this 3 a 0. So, opposite of 3 is -3. The row where we have our 1 is row 1, plus the row we want our 0 in, row 3, will replace row 3. Alright, so if we go ahead and do that, here's what we will get. First 2 rows don't change. For the last row, again, do your scratch work off to the side, and you should get 0, 1, 1, -3. All right, next step. So we're done with that first column. We got 1, 0, 0. So next we need to change this 3 into a 1. So to remember, to make a 1, we just multiply by that number upside down, essentially. All right, so if we have 3, we need to divide by 3 to get 1. So to divide by 3, it's the same as saying 1/3 times 3. So it's going to be 1/3 times row 2, because that's where we want it. We'll replace row 2. All right. So if we do that, row 1 stays the same. Row 2 will become 0, 1, -2, 3, and then row 3 also stays the same. All right, we're done with that now. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to turn this top number into a 0. So getting a 0, we do opposite of that number, so -2, times, where did we just make our 1? We made our 1 in row 2. So row 2 plus, we want our 0 in row 1, and it'll replace row 1. Again, do your scratch work. Pause the video if you need to copy this down, because I'm about to move up to the top and we will go do the answer. All right, so I'm just going to move up here so we have more room again. And here's going to be our next matrix. So for row 1, again, once you've done your scratch work, we get 1, 0, 3, -3. Then rows 2 and 3 don't change. So we're just going to copy those down exactly how they were. All right, to finish off the second column, we're going to need a 0 down here. So opposite of 1 is -1 times row 2, because that's where we made our 1, plus row 3 is where we want our 0, replaces row 3. So do your scratch work. Pause the video if you need to, that way you have some time. And then when you're done with that, our next matrix, first 2 rows don't change, so I'm just copying those down exactly the way they are. And then our last row will be 0, 0, 3, -6. All right, that's the first 2 columns done. All right, we're in the home stretch now. So if we're working on this third column now, then the first thing we need to do is get our 1 in that column, so it's at the bottom right. So to change a 3 into a 1, we need to do 1/3 times the row where we want that 1, which is row 3, replace row 3. So let's go ahead and do that. First 2 rows don't change. And the last row will be 0, 0, 1, -2. All right, time for the last couple zeros. Right. And by the way, whenever you're making the zeros above the 1, it doesn't matter which one you do first. I usually just go top to bottom because it's easiest for me to remember and make sure I'm doing all of them. So I'm going to start with 3. So it's going to be -3 times row 3, that's where our 1 is, plus row 1, where we want our 0, replaces row 1. All right, when your scratch work is done, let's go ahead and do this. So row 1 is now going to be 1, 0, 0, 3. Then row 2 and 3 aren't changing, so 0, 1, negative 2, 3, and 0, 0, 1, negative 2. All right, last row operation. We need to get this negative 2 to turn into a 0. So if it's negative 2, the opposite of that would be positive 2 times row 3, because that's where we have our 1, plus row 2, that's where we want our 0, will replace row 2. All right, again, do your scratch work off to the side, and then we can write down our last matrix. So it's going to be first row exactly the same. The second row is going to be 0, 1, 0, negative 1, and the last row doesn't change. All right, so I know that was a lot of work. All right, the good news is, once we're done with that, remember this is x, y, z. So we have x equals 3, y equals negative 1, z equals negative 2. Our answer is just right there. So it's 3, negative 1, negative 2, and we're done. All right, all of these are the exact same steps as whenever we did the 2 variables and 2 equations. The only difference is there's more of those steps now. All right. Now, one little tip just to save a bit of room and to make everything a little bit nicer and neater. If you want to, whenever you're doing the zeros, you can do those zeros together in kind of one step. And I'll show you that on the next one. But it just saves you a little bit of time, a little bit of room on your paper. So it helps out a little bit. But you absolutely don't have to. You can do it one by one like this, and it is perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and look at example 4. All right, first step, always make the augmented matrix. So 1, 1, negative 2, 5, negative 3, 3, 4, 6, negative 2, negative 2, 4, 10. All right, so we already got our 1 in the top left, so yay, we don't have to do that. So our next step is to make these 2 zeros, right? So here's what I was talking about before, and I'll go ahead and do the scratch work even just so you can see exactly what I meant. We're going to have to change both of these to 0 in our next step. So we can just go ahead and do them both at once. So to change the negative 3 into a 0, we would have positive 3, because the opposite of negative 3, times row 1, because that's where we have our 1, plus row 2, that's where we want the 0, replaces row 2, right? All right, since we also want the negative 2 to be a 0, I'm just going to go ahead and write that row operation underneath it as well. So 2 row 1 plus row 3, because that's where we want that 0, will replace row 3. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go off to the side and do both of these scratch works. So first off, 3 row 1 plus row 2 3 row 1 would be 3, 3, negative 6, 15. Row 2 doesn't change, so negative 3, 3, 4, 6. Add them up, we get 0, 6, negative 2, 21. That's going to be our new row 2 in a minute. Keep that in your mind that that's the new row 2. All right, the other one was 2 row 1 plus row 3. So 2 times row 1 would be 2, 2, negative 4, 10. Row 3 would be negative 2, negative 2, 4, 10. Then we just add those up. So 0, 0, 0, 20. Alright, so let's go ahead and make our next matrix. We did not do anything to row 1, so that's still going to stay 1, 1, negative 2, 5. Row 2 is going to be 0, 6, negative 2, 21. That was the row 2 from right here. This one on the bottom is our new row 3, so we got 0, 0, 0, 20. Alright, and with this one, it is our lucky day because we see those 3 zeros. When the entire row becomes 0, it means it's one of our special cases. So in this case, we have 0 equals 20. That is false, so the answer is just no solution. All right. Luckily, once we get that, we don't even have to finish off the problem. We don't have to do any more row operations. Once we see that it's one of those special ones, you see if it's true or false, write your answer, done. All right, last one. For the last one, we're going to start the exact same way, just writing the augmented matrix. So 2, negative 1, negative 4, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 5, 3, 1, negative 17. All right, so first thing we need to do is get a 1 up here in the top left. But I see that I do have a 1 already in that first column. So since it's our first move, we can just go ahead and do row 1 swapped with row 2. So that's going to give us, oops, not 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, negative 1, negative 4, 3, negative 5, 3, 1, negative 17. Now we start looking for zeros. So we need both of these to be 0. And it looks like I'm doing okay on time, so I will actually go ahead and do the scratch work with you and everything like that. Before I didn't, just because I don't want this to be an hour-long video, because I know if this was an hour-long video, then all of you would have already stopped watching. So thank you all who are still watching and keeping up with me. Alright, so if we want to turn the 2 into a 0, opposite of 2 is negative 2. Row 1 is where we have our 1, plus row 2 is where we want the 0, replaces row 2. I'm going to go ahead and do the negative 5 as well. So if it's negative 5, opposite would be positive 5. There's row 1, that's where we have our 1. Plus row 3 is where we want that 0. Replaces row 3. Alright, so just off to the side, I'm going to go ahead and do that scratch work. So first off, we got negative 2 row 1 plus row 2. Negative 2 times row 1 is going to be negative 2, negative 4, negative 6, negative 8. Row 2 is 2, negative 1, negative 4, 3. Add those up, we get 0, negative 5, negative 10, negative 5. And now remember, that's going to be our new row 2, so just keep that in mind for a second. Our other one that we need to do is 5 row 1 plus row 3. So 5 times row 1 is going to be 5, 10, 15, and oops, not 12, 20. Row 3 will be negative 5, 3, 1, negative 17. Add those up, we get 0, 13, 16, 3. And remember, that's going to be our new row 3. So, if we make our new matrix, we will have row 1 staying the same, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Row 2 was this one that we did up here, so 0, negative 5, negative 10, negative 5. And row 3 was right here, so 0, 13, 16, 3. Alright, that's the first column done. So next thing we need to do is we need to get the 1 in our second column, which means that negative 5 needs to turn into a 1. Alright, so to do that, negative 5 to be a 1 would need to be divided by itself. So negative 5 divided by negative 5. So we're just going to do 1/5 and make it negative. That way it's dividing by negative 5 essentially. Times row 2. We'll replace row 2. Alright. So again, just off to the side if you need it. Negative 1/5 times 0, negative 5, negative 10, negative 5. Distribute that out. We're going to get 0, 1, 2, 1. That's going to be our new row 2. So we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4. Our new row 2 is 0, 1, 2, 1. And our last row is still 0, 13, 16, 3. So since we got the 1, we now have to get those zeros. So to get the 2 to be a 0, opposite of 2 is negative 2, times row 2, because that's where we have our 1, plus row 1, that's where we want our 0, we'll replace row 1. To make the 13 into a 0, we do negative 13, again, times row 2, still where we have our 1, plus row 3, because that's where we want this 0, we'll replace row 3. Alright, so let's go ahead and do these two pieces of scratch work. So first off, we got negative 2, row 2, plus row 1. Negative 2 times row 2 is going to be 0, -2, -4, -2. Row 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4. And add them up, we get 1, 0, -1, 2. Alright, so that's going to be our new row 1. Keep that in mind for just a second. Second piece of scratch work. We have -13 row 2 plus row 3. Alright, so if we go ahead and do this, -13 times row 2 would be 0, -13, -26, -13. Row 3 is 0, 13, 16, 3. Then we add them up. So 0, 0, -10, -10. That's our new row 3. Keep that in mind. Now we go ahead and make our next matrix. So our next matrix, row 1 was up here. 1, 0, -1, 2. Row 2 we didn't touch because that's not where we were making zeros. So just copy that down. And then our new row 3 is 0, 0, -10, -10. Alright. In the home stretch. So we need to make our last one. So to make that 1, we do -1/10 times row 3 replaces row 3. Alright, so -1/10 times row 3, which is 0, 0, -10, -10. We're just dividing them all by -10, so it'd be 0, 0, 1, 1. So first two rows don't change. And the last one is 0, 0, 1, 1. Now we can make our final two zeros. Alright. So to make, let me go ahead and just slide down. To make the -1 into a 0, we need to do a +1 times row 3, because that's where we have our 1 now, plus row 1, places row 1. To turn the 2 into a 0, we would have -2 times row 3, because that's where we have our 1, plus row 2 replaces row 2. Alright, last bit of scratch work. So we have 1 row 3 plus row 1. Well, row 3 is 0, 0, 1, 1. Row 1 is 1, 0, -1, 2. Add those up, we get 1, 0, 0, 3. Alright, that's going to be our new row 1, so keep that in mind. And then our last one is -2 times row 3 plus row 2. So -2 times row 3 would be 0, 0, -2, -2. Row 2 is 0, 1, 2, 1. Add those up, we get 0, 1, 0, -1. Alright, that is our new row 2. So we're going to make our final matrix. Row 1 was right up here. 1, 0, 0, 3. Row 2, we got down here 0, 1, 0, -1. Row 3 didn't change, 0, 0, 1, 1. And with all of that work done, all we have to do is write out our answer now. So remember, from top to bottom, it's going to be x, y, z. So x, y, z. That is our answer. All right, everyone. So I know these are extremely long problems. I know that there are a lot of steps, a lot of moving parts. Just do not get discouraged if you happen to get one little number wrong. It's very easy in these problems to accidentally multiply negatives wrong or get one sign wrong somewhere, and it's just going to mess up the rest of your problem. Keep in mind that the part we're most concerned about is, do you know the process? Right? So just try to be really careful on all of your signs. Try to really get your sign rules down. Try to use your calculator if you need to. But the main thing is, don't give up. No matter what, try to get down to an answer. Try to get to a place where you hit that goal. And if you get there, then that's really what we want to see. We want to see you getting through this entire process. All right. And with that, that will be all for Gauss-Jordan elimination. Bye, guys.